Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, TugaAvenger here, and at long last, Ace Combat 7 re-emerges from the shadows. Almost 12 months of void, but none of that matters anymore. We have a new trailer. And it's a bit of a strange one, for Ace Combat at least. We're very used to highly cinematic trailers for Ace Combat, but this one is... well, there's a bit of it, but it's mostly story exposition and a bit of gameplay demonstration. But you know me. Give me gameplay and I'm a happy guy. Anyway, onto the trailer. The first minute is very uneventful, with a few long shots of absolutely gorgeous scenery, some of which we have seen before, namely the cratered forest at Chopinburg, the setting for Mission 3 as seen in the gameplay demos, and Newman Crater out at sea and present in the VR demo. Although of course those are secondary concerns for them, the purpose of these shots is none other than demonstrate the power of Unreal Engine 4 and how breathtakingly gorgeous it makes this game look. And in between them we have hangar shots of 4 different aircraft. The F-15C, the Rafale M, the A-10C, as confirmed by official sources, the first flight of the C model in Ace Combat. Finally, after 20 years we get the eye in the sky, the absolute flying god that is the A-10C with its fire control system. And the F-35C, thankfully I was mistaken in my last trailer analysis, it is not the ungainly B model. Anyway, the trailer moves on from scenery to action.
How penal is this penal unit, you ask? This place is a shithole.
Commencing deception and interception. Spare squadron, lead the way. Trigger your call sign as Spare 15. Consider it your prisoner number for the air.
Okay, there's a lot to dissect here. First of all, Missy. Language. Please. Well, the European Missy at least, because if you're watching the American trailer, this is what you'll hear.
Do you wonder what it means to be a prisoner here? Everything is rotten to the core.
Oh, America, always being more prudish in the things that don't matter. And second, we'd gotten some bits and pieces about the whole penal squadron concept, but this is the first time we delve into it. And so, allow me to go a bit in depth into it. For those who may be unaware, penal battalions have been used throughout history, composed of criminals, deserters, political opponents, and just about anyone an authoritarian state at war would want to get rid of, but at the same time use their desperately needed manpower. These were generally placed in precarious positions, in suicide attacks, in indefensible positions, and inevitably wiped out the majority of them. The practice fell completely out of favor after World War II, although their use is mainly associated today with the Red Army. The Soviet Air Force also provides us with the only known case of penal squadrons, with condemned airmen and gunners being sent against hardened targets, well-defended airfields, and most often than not they had it worse than the penal ground troops, because whereas their only hope of getting out was through injury during brave action, that was now impossible for pilots. A successful mission would count for nothing, and an injury, if it occurred, was most often fatal. But how does that apply to the modern age and to Strange Real? It's difficult to say. In one hand, Osia is a highly developed nation within Strange Real, a universe that, as far as we know, has similar moral standards as ours. So the concept of a penal squadron in use in 2019 by a major democratic world superpower in a war that, at least at its start, is not a total war, it's a foreign war even, is a bit hard to believe. And on the other hand, they're giving what they consider to be criminals modern supersonic aircraft with thousands of miles of range and loaded with sensitive equipment, making them essentially a golden ticket for desertion. And the only way that I can imagine they can prevent that is through some sort of remote kill switch or even a remote bomb on the plane, which, I mean, those would be even worse. Or maybe they go full Area 88 and have desertion hunting squadrons like Schwarze from Ace Combat 0, who knows. In either case, Ozia, what the hell are you doing? All this to say that the Penal Squadron premise is quite far-fetched and more than a little bit silly. But on the other hand, if it can lead to an interesting story, you know what? Go with it. I'm all for it. In any case, we can see that the Penal Squadron does live up to its name because its conditions are not great. They've already been attacked with multiple bomb impacts around the base. And they're taking off from it in what is called a deception and interception mission. Quite suitable for such a squadron. And it makes absolute sense. I mean, after all, if you're willing to go as far as making a penal squadron, why not go the whole way and start doing false flag attacks or whatever these guys are doing? It's quite a large squadron, this one, Spare. We start off as Spare 15, and from the line that we're supposed to lead the way, one could assume there's even more penal squadrons. It's also a diverse squadron, not just in its aircraft, but also in its origins. While Trigger's tailcode is FG, probably referring to Fort Grace and meaning he is already based in Usia, two of his wingmen have the tailcodes HK and NM, probably referring to Higher Lark and McNeely Air Force Base respectively. And even then we seem to be the greatest criminal among them. Anyway, moving on.
Today they tossed someone new into the mix. Wonder what he did to get sent here.
My wild guess on Trigger's crime? Friendly fire. Possibly on his commanding officer. Possibly even a case of fragging. And of course we have our first sighting of the new and improved Arsenal bird, model number 1, call sign Liberty. And its shiny new aura around it. We know next to nothing about it and we can only presume it'll have some sort of defensive capability. Something like that has been done before. The Spiritus of Joint Assault Infamy had reads, a system that used an energy field to deflect missiles and even guns away from core areas of the aircraft. Whether it's something similar this time around, it's only speculation. But it is an interesting parallel to draw.
Spare Squadron, 2 groups of bandits, bearing 300 from the reference point. You're cleared to engage. Show no mercy. Trigger's taking the beast head on.
This is ridiculous. This is just straight up weather porn, and my god, is it drop dead gorgeous. I suppose the corollary of me being a guy who doesn't care much about graphics is that when they are good, I am impressed beyond disbelief, and that is the case right here. These weather effects are simply outstanding.
Trigger's taking the beast head on.
Context would indicate the beast is none other than our good old friend Mikhail. But is it? There's a long history of them throwing in lines that refer to other things entirely. It could be him, it could be the Arsenal bird, it could be a different squadron. Let's remember we've had a beast squadron before. Who knows? They could be throwing that line in just to confuse us. And it's nothing but gameplay from here on.
You have 3 sin lines, right, Trigger? 4 scratches, the more heat is the crime.
Spare 15, work off your crimes.
Whew, hang on, I might just have had a crisis. I spoke of weather porn earlier. God damn, this is porn for every Ace Combat fan in the planet. And to me, this is far more impressive than pure cinematics alone, to have raw gameplay, displaying the functionality of the game and being highly cinematic on its own. Boy, that is right up my alley. So, let's break that down, shall we? We have a full AAM volley from a Sukhoi Su-57, previously known as PACFA. Interesting to note, those 4 AAMs didn't seem to have much of a launch delay, they came right off the missile bay. Also, credit to Laserins on Twitter for pointing out that that bar in the middle of the upper half of the cockpit is not present in the pre-production Su-57, which means that they used the PACFA prototype for this. Next we have the A-10C raining all manner of death, as it should. The targeting reticule is much larger than in previous games, which means they're less accurate, and with only 8 of them per salvo, we better hope they're as powerful, or even more, than in Ace Combat 6. Next we have a refreshingly rare cameo from an F-22 putting a drone in its place. Not much to see here other than confirmation we're getting 8 AMs with those stealth weapon pods, and that this guy is flying out there with 0 flares. Typical arrogant F-22 thinks he's invincible. The Su-57 engages one of the Arsenal Bird's drones, and we have the crowning shot of the trailer. These few seconds are, quite simply, the most gorgeous a dogfight has ever looked in Ace Combat history. I genuinely cannot wait to play this mission. Dogfighting through the Cars formations, under a thunderstorm, against a worthy foe, nothing better. I wouldn't take HCAAs to that fight though, let's hope they're not as useless as in Infinity. I keep rewatching this clip wondering if the triangle hold camera is too floaty and cinematic and not as functional as it used to be, but I think that's just the spectacularity of the scenery. I think it's just the same as it's always been. And of course, the cliffhanger. I do believe the primary function of that energy halo thing is defensive in nature, otherwise there would be no point in sustaining it in place, but that doesn't preclude a secondary shockwave attack, and of course, Ace Combat also has a history of shockwave attacks from airborne fortresses, from portable games.
Attention! Remember, you're not bona fide military. You're expendable.
We always have been, my friend. Just ask every game we've played a mercenary in. And a final note just to say how incredible the music in this trailer was. I'm not much of a fan of Latin chanting, and personally I would have loved a return to heavier tunes like the ones Ryo Hamamoto performed for Assault Horizon, but as far as more orchestral themes are concerned, this type, with a very high cadence, now that just gets me pumped up. I'm starting to ramble a bit, so I should probably finish it off here. So, what's my final take on it? Honestly, the first time I watched it, I thought it was underwhelming. The second time, not so much. And every time I keep watching it again, it gets better and better and better. This is not a traditional trailer from Ace Combat as we expected it. We need to remember what this trailer was made for. This is proof of life. This is a display that Ace Combat 7 is well and alive and on the way. It's not purely cinematic. It tells us a few details of the story, but it doesn't tell a grand tale like previous Ace Combat trailers did. This trailer is meant to display the game itself, what they've been working on, what they want to show us, what we will experience when we finally get to play a game that some of us might have feared we would never get to play. But those fears, however understandable, were completely unfounded. Ace Combat lives, and by God does it live gloriously. Everyone clamored for a release date. I frankly don't care. I care about this, what we will actually be getting when we get it. You wanted me hyped? Consider your mission accomplished. We have more information and a likely trailer due out on Gamescom 2 months from now. Look forward to it, and until then, see ya.